You ever had that feeling? That slow, creeping dread that someone is just taking from you? Not just your property, but your peace of mind? I sure did. I just bought my dream home in the heart of Asia, a fixer-upper with potential, but it came with an uninvited guest, an old man, next door, who decided my water supply was his personal, free well. What he didn't know was that my idea of fixing up didn't just stop at the house. It extended to him, and when I was done, his life, much like his water, would run completely dry. If you've ever had to stand your ground against an entitled bully, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video, and let me know in the comments if you've faced a similar injustice. This isn't just a story about water, it's about reclaiming what's yours and watching karmic justice rain down. Let's dive into how one simple flick of a switch brought a whole house tumbling down. My new house was a steal. Nestled right in the bustling heart of the capital city, it was a dream come true, especially since the previous owners were family friends who needed quick cash. They hadn't lived in the country for almost 3 years, which meant the place had sat empty, a silent canvas waiting for new life. But empty is a relative term, as I soon found out. The sale finalized at the start of the month, and I wasted no time moving in. The house definitely needed work. It was a renovation project frozen in time, with a main door secured by nothing more than a flimsy padlock, not even a proper door lock. And perhaps most concerning, there was no gate. None. Just an open invitation for anyone to stroll right in. The very first day, before I'd even unpacked my essentials, I saw it. A stranger's bike parked casually in my garage. My garage. I didn't even hesitate. I simply moved the bike out to the road. The same day, I had a gate installed. A solid, no-nonsense barrier between my property and the world. Later, an angry man was banging on my new gate, his face a mask of indignation. I watched him through my window, a quiet satisfaction bubbling up as he eventually gave up and took his bike, defeated. It wasn't a great first impression of the neighborhood, but things quieted down. The occasional person, still thinking the house was abandoned, would block my gate, but a clear no parking sign quickly put an end to that. I settled in, my 3 dogs adapting to their new digs, and life seemed to find its rhythm. Then, last week, as I stood under a lukewarm drizzle in my shower, I noticed it. The water pressure was pathetic, barely a trickle. Simultaneously, I heard the distinct hum of my next-door neighbor's water pump. This neighbor, an old man, lived in a 3-story house. He occupied the ground floor, while the 2 upper floors were rented out to tenants. I knew a little about him. My friends, the previous owners, had warned me. He wasn't happy about the house being sold. He'd voiced numerous complaints to them, seething with anger over the transaction. But I'm a 6-foot-tall guy, and with 3 loyal dogs, I wasn't intimidated. He hadn't dared to confront me directly, and I certainly wasn't going to seek him out. In our country, public water pressure often isn't strong enough to reach the roof-mounted tanks of multi-story homes. So, a water pump is essential to get the water up there. Hearing his pump kick on just as my pressure dropped was more than a coincidence. It was a red flag flapping wildly in the wind. My gut clenched. I waited patiently until his pump finally clicked off. Then, I walked around my house, turning on various taps. Instantly, the pressure surged back to normal, a strong, steady flow. A cold certainty washed over me. He was stealing my water. The pieces of a confusing puzzle began to click into place. For the past 3 years while the house sat empty, the water bills had been inexplicably high. We'd attributed it to leaks, which the house definitely had, but the numbers never quite added up. They were too high for mere leaks. Now, it all made sense. This old miser, seeing an empty house, saw an opportunity. He waltzed onto my property at some point in the last 3 years and tapped into my water line, siphoning off what he needed without paying a single cent. I couldn't pinpoint the exact connection point, but after repeatedly testing my water pressure against his pump cycle, I was absolutely sure. The audacity, the sheer entitlement of it, churned in my stomach. I sat on it for a few days, the idea of confronting him swirling in my mind, followed by thoughts of legal action, or even, for a fleeting moment, just letting it go. After all, water here is incredibly cheap. My monthly bill, even with washing my 3 dogs, my car every week, and watering my garden, was only about $5. Even with him stealing some, it was negligible. But this wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. It was about arrogant, entitled old people who believe they have a right to exploit others' resources, to take what isn't theirs, and to get away with it. It gnawed at me. I couldn't just let it be. He needed a lesson, a taste of his own medicine, and I was just the doctor to prescribe it. My revenge plan was elegantly simple, almost laughably so. I wouldn't need to trespass on his property, nor would I be breaking any laws. I would simply turn off my main water supply. It was the ultimate passive-aggressive power move. I could get back at him without lifting a muscle, without a single shouted word. So, on Monday, just 4 days ago, the moment arrived. I waited, my ears tuned for the telltale hum. As soon as his water pump flicked on, that familiar whirring sound filling the air, I calmly walked to my main water valve and, with a satisfying click, turned off the supply. Here's how household water tanks work in our country. There's a ball valve in the tank that detects the water level and tells the pump to turn on when it's low. If the water level doesn't rise, that valve stays open, electronically signaling the pump to keep running until the tank fills up. But with my water supply cut off, his tank wasn't filling. The level wasn't increasing. His pump, deprived of water, was going to run and run and run. Anyone who knows anything about pumps knows that starving one of water is a surefire way to burn it out. My expectation was simple. His pump would fail, and his tenants would suffer the inconvenience.
What I didn't account for was the collateral damage, the beautiful, unintended consequences of his constant power draw. His ancient 90s-era wiring, completely unsuited for continuous, high-amp operation, would be under immense strain. It would be pulling power all night long, heating up, sizzling. If he had bothered to upgrade his electrical system to modern standards, none of this would have happened. But he hadn't. At around 3 a.m., the tranquility of the night was shattered. I heard it. Muffled voices from his house, escalating quickly into shouting. All the residents were awake, their hushed whispers turning into indignant roars about why their house, and only theirs, had no power or water. The power part? That was the delightful surprise. His tenants were absolutely furious, yelling at their landlord, the old miser himself. Our tenant protection laws are robust. Power and water are classified as essential services, even at the state level. Cutting these services is grounds for lawsuits, unless it's due to unavoidable reasons like weather. In this case, the landlord is solely responsible for maintaining the house's wiring and ensuring a continuous water supply. These tenants weren't just unhappy, they were incandescent with rage. One of them, fed up, moved out just 2 days later, after being informed that power and water wouldn't be returning anytime soon. Both tenants on the upper floors immediately lodged complaints with the police. In our system, if a person is in clear breach of the law, the police can issue fines or penalties without needing a court judgment. It can be challenged in court, but the person still has to pay the fines up front, only to be refunded if the court later deems them unlawful. So, the landlord lost both his tenants, and now he's on the hook for a $500 fine, a significant sum in our country. On top of that, he has to refund both tenants' security deposits. He can't even rent out the upper floors again until both the water and power issues are fully repaired, which will cost him even more money. The irony, the poetic justice of it all, was almost too sweet. As of right now, he's moving out on Sunday to live with his daughter. He can't afford to live alone. Those tenants were his only source of income, and as a retired mechanic, he has no other means of support. His entire livelihood, built on the backs of his tenants and funded by stolen water, had crumbled. He did figure out why his motor kept running, overloading his wiring and burning everything out. He came to my gate, his face a carefully blank mask, and asked, "Did you turn off your water?" I met his gaze, a slight, innocent tilt to my head. "Oh yeah," I replied, as casually as I could manage. My tank had a new leak on a pipe, so I turned it off till the next day when the plumber could come by to fix it. The look on his face. You guys, it was priceless. He managed to keep it straight, but I knew he was holding back a torrent of frustration, of realization, of utter defeat. He just mumbled, "Oh, okay," and shuffled back inside. I don't know if he knows that I know, but honestly, I don't care. What can he do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm actually having a plumber come next week to sort out my plumbing, specifically to remove any pipes that might have extended onto his property. 2 birds, 1 stone. I solved my water issue, and I eliminated a potentially problematic neighbor, all by the simple, satisfying flick of a tap. The old man, the one who thought he could simply take what was mine, was now a shell of his former self. His carefully constructed life, built on exploitation, had imploded. The fines, the lost income, the sheer expense of repairing his dilapidated house, it was all too much. To see him, the man who had so confidently, so arrogantly stolen from me, reduced to moving in with his daughter, utterly destitute, it wasn't about gloating. It was about a profound sense of balance being restored. It was about knowing that sometimes the quietest actions have the loudest consequences. My water was secure, my peace restored, and justice, in its purest, most satisfying form, had been served. This wasn't just about a water bill. It was about the deeper current of respect, of boundaries, and of the fundamental unfairness that arises when someone believes they are above the rules. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't loud or aggressive. It's calculated, precise, and utterly devastating in its simplicity. What's the most satisfying act of justice you've ever witnessed, or perhaps even engineered yourself? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of subtle payback, hit that like button, subscribe for more tales of poetic justice, and share this video with anyone who appreciates a perfectly executed revenge. Until next time, stay vigilant, and never let anyone take what's yours. Every office has one. That guy. The one who's allergic to work, a master of deflection, and a professional credit stealer. In my office, that guy was Seth. For months, he'd been dumping his workload on me, waltzing around like he owned the place while I picked up his slack. My frustration simmered, a slow burn, until one day, he pushed me too far. He handed me a critical report, due in mere hours, a report he was responsible for. That was the moment I stopped being his doormat and started crafting a trap so subtle, so perfect, he wouldn't even see it coming. If you've ever been the unsung hero, silently seething while a lazy colleague took all the glory, then hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video, and tell me in the comments if you've ever had to deal with a Seth of your own. This isn't just a story about spreadsheets. It's about reclaiming your worth and watching justice unfold, one hidden formula at a time. Let's dive in. Seth was a legend in our office, but not for anything good. He was a master of the disappearing act, vanishing for 2-hour lunches, taking endless bathroom breaks, or simply glued to his phone, scrolling through who knows what. He'd saunter in late, every day, with some flimsy excuse about traffic, as if the roads only conspired against him. He was a professional slacker, a human black hole of productivity, and somehow he always seemed to get away with it. It was infuriating to watch him coast while the rest of us pulled our weight. For the past 6 months, I'd been his favorite target. My inbox became a graveyard of his unfinished tasks, disguised as polite requests for help. "Hey, can you just take a look at this project?" He'd email, knowing full well take a look meant do everything. He was a chameleon, effortlessly blending into the background whenever real work needed to be done, only to reappear, beaming, when it was time to present the finished product. I tried talking to our boss a couple of times, explaining the situation, but Seth had a silver tongue. He'd somehow spin a tale, deflect blame, or just charm his way out of any real consequence. It was demoralizing, soul-crushing, to work twice as hard and watch him take all the credit. The tension in my shoulders was a constant companion, a physical manifestation of my growing resentment. The feeling of being perpetually underestimated, disrespected, and used gnawed at me. I'd come home exhausted, not from my own work, but from carrying Seth's dead weight. The desire for validation, for someone to see how truly unfair this was, burned within me. But more than that, a quiet, insistent need for justice began to form. The final straw wasn't a slow drip of annoyance, it was a deluge. A major report, critical for a key client, was due in 2 days. This was Seth's responsibility, a project he'd been given weeks to complete. Yet, with less than 48 hours to spare,
he dumped the entire thing on my desk. "Hey, I've just been swamped with other urgent stuff," he said, his voice laced with false sincerity. "Could you just finalize this for me? It's mostly done, just needs a quick polish." Quick polish meant starting from scratch. My blood ran cold, then boiled. This wasn't just laziness, it was sabotage. He was actively jeopardizing our client relationship and my reputation to cover for his own incompetence. This time, there would be no complaints to the boss. This time, I would handle it myself. The idea came to me almost immediately, a mischievous spark in the back of my mind. A few days before the report deadline, I casually strolled over to Seth's desk. "Hey Seth," I began, my tone deceptively friendly, "you're pretty good with Excel, right?" "I'm struggling with something." His chest puffed out slightly. "Oh, I get by," he mumbled, trying to sound modest but clearly flattered. Then, with a self-deprecating chuckle, he added, "Actually, not really, I don't know much about it. Spreadsheets confuse me." Perfect. The next time Seth tried to offload a stack of complex spreadsheets onto me, predictably, for his next report, I didn't object. I even smiled. "Sure, Seth, I can help you organize these," I said, a subtle thrill running through me. This was it. My chance. I took the spreadsheets, loaded them onto my computer, and began my work. But this wasn't about organization, it was about precision, about crafting a digital snare. Deep within the heart of the documents, I began to embed a series of hidden formulas. These weren't overt, dramatic alterations. No, they were subtle, insidious. They didn't affect the visible numbers directly, but they subtly linked cells in ways that, if disturbed, would cause chaos. The kicker, the truly delicious part, was what would happen when Seth tried to copy and paste the data. Every time he transferred the organized numbers into his report, these hidden formulas would trigger, ever so slightly, scrambling the figures just enough to render them completely useless, a jumbled mess of nonsense that looked superficially correct but was mathematically absurd. It took me a little extra time, a meticulous attention to detail, but I was careful. The key was to make it seem like a random glitch, not a deliberate act. On the day the client report was due, Seth was exactly where I expected him to be, slacking off. He sauntered in late, spent an hour on his phone, then disappeared for his extended lunch, utterly confident that I had, as always, handled everything. The anticipation was almost unbearable, a delicious tension coiling in my stomach. I pictured the moment he would try to present those numbers, and a faint smile touched my lips. The phone call came in the late afternoon. It wasn't for me, but I heard the furious tone from our boss's office. The client was on the line, absolutely incandescent with rage. The report, the one Seth was responsible for, was filled with nonsense numbers. "What is this, Seth?" I heard our boss roar, his voice usually calm, now a thunderclap. Panic radiated from Seth's corner of the office. He rushed to his computer, his face pale, frantically trying to fix the disaster. He'd copy a section, paste it, and watch in horror as the numbers warped and shifted. He'd try to correct one part, and another, seemingly unrelated section, would suddenly break. It was a digital hydra, growing 2 new heads for every one he tried to sever. The more he struggled, the deeper he sank into the quicksand of his own making. Eventually, his frantic eyes landed on me. He stumbled over, a desperate plea in his voice. "Hey, I don't know what's going on. The numbers are all messed up. Can you help? I looked at him, feigning complete confusion. My eyes widened slightly. Oh my God, Seth, I don't know what happened. I exclaimed, genuine concern masking my inner triumph. Maybe it's a glitch? Have you tried? I don't know, restarting your computer? Sometimes Excel just acts weird. I offered some vague, useless advice, watching with an almost clinical detachment as he scurried back to his desk, his face a mask of utter despair. He spent the rest of the day, right up until quitting time, trying to salvage the unsalvageable, a frantic hamster on a wheel going nowhere. The truth, as it always does, came out. Our boss, already furious from the client's complaint, quickly pieced together that Seth had dumped the crucial report on me, and then failed to even review it. For once, Seth's smooth talk, his endless excuses, his silver tongue, utterly failed him. The evidence was irrefutable, a critical client report, filled with gibberish numbers, a direct result of his negligence and, ironically, his reliance on me. The verbal lashing he received was legendary, echoing through the quiet office long after it ended. He was lambasted, not just for the screw-up, but for his consistent laziness and deceit. The climax arrived when our boss, his face grim, informed Seth he was being put on temporary leave without pay. The implication was clear, this was his last chance, a final warning before outright termination. To see him, the man who had always skated by, finally face genuine consequences, was a profound vindication. A heavy weight I hadn't realized I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. Justice, it seemed, wasn't always a grand, dramatic confrontation, but sometimes a quiet, almost invisible rearrangement of numbers. This wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about reclaiming my time, my energy, and my sense of professional dignity. It taught me that sometimes, the most effective way to deal with a bully isn't to confront them head-on, but to understand their weaknesses and leverage them with quiet precision. Have you ever had to get creative to deal with a difficult coworker? Share your stories in the comments below, I'd love to hear them. If this tale of digital retribution brought a smile to your face, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of justice served, and share this video with anyone who needs a little inspiration to stand up for themselves. Until next time, remember, some problems are best solved with a little bit of cunning, and a whole lot of Excel. For years, that sound, the persistent ring of a stranger calling for someone else, was the background music to my life. My first premium phone number came with a hidden history, a decade-long saga of debt collectors and angry creditors pursuing a phantom named Bitsa. Little did I know, this very same phantom would, years later, become my tyrannical boss. He was a monster who reveled in making our lives hell, a credit-stealing ghost from my past. And when I finally connected the dots, my decade-long annoyance became the perfect weapon to bring his entire empire crashing down. If you've ever dealt with a boss who made your life a living nightmare, or if you've ever found a truly unique way to serve justice, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video, and let me know in the comments if you believe in karma. This isn't just a story about a phone number, it's about the intricate dance of fate, and how a tiny piece of information can unleash a flood of righteous payback. Let's dive in. Mobile phones were a luxury in my country, a nascent technology just finding its footing around 2004, the year I graduated high school. My parents, beaming with pride, bought me my very first one, a clunky, second-hand Nokia. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and I promised myself that one day, I'd earn enough to buy a brand new one, a symbol of my own independence. College arrived, bringing with it a 2-hour daily commute and a burning ambition to succeed. I'd always been a diligent student, even winning several district-level awards in high school. It was during my first year of college that those awards were finally distributed. One, from a nationalized bank, came with a monetary prize, and it was enough. Enough for that new phone. I walked into the store, heart thumping, and walked out with a sleek Sony Ericsson K300i and what I thought was a premium SIM card. The number itself was easy to remember, almost catchy. What I didn't realize, couldn't possibly have known, was that this premium number was premium for all the wrong reasons. It had been abandoned, left behind by its previous owner, like a ticking time bomb. By the third day, the calls started. Is this Bitsa? We're calling for Mr. Bitsa regarding an outstanding payment. They came from banks, loan sharks, shadowy financial institutions. It turned out the number had belonged to this mysterious Bitsa, and for the next 20 years, these calls would be a persistent, unwelcome hum in the background of my life. I was determined to keep my premium number, so I started a ritual, blocking every single wrong number. It was a tedious process back then, device-specific. Every time I upgraded my phone, I had to transfer a sprawling, ever-growing list of blocked numbers, a digital ledger of Bitsa's many creditors. Life moved on. I graduated college in 2009, landed my first job, and started building my career. Around 2010, I was assigned to a new project, and immediately, I heard the whispers. This project had a notorious reputation, a graveyard of burnt-out employees, all due to one man, the project manager, Bits. I didn't know his full name then, just Bits. He was a tyrant, a connoisseur of chaos, and he took perverse pride in making our lives a living hell. Bits ruled with an iron fist. From the moment his team stepped into the office, they were met with a barrage of emails and messages, each more urgent, more demanding than the last. He thrived on disruption, changing project deadlines on a whim, forcing us to work late into the night, through weekends, shattering any semblance of personal life. His presence loomed over every task. He insisted on micromanaging every single detail, yet he was astonishingly quick to snatch credit for any glimmer of success, no matter how small. Failures, however, were met with his notorious tirades, public berating sessions where he'd assign blame without hesitation, his face contorted in rage. His unpredictable temper kept everyone on edge, a constant fear of making the slightest mistake gnawing at us. Meetings were another tool in his arsenal of torment. He'd schedule them during lunch breaks, after hours, ensuring no one could escape his grasp. These meetings were often pointless, serving only to reinforce his dominance, to remind us who was in control. His relentless stream of emails continued around the clock, each carrying a thinly veiled threat, perfection or dismissal. Under his reign, morale plummeted, and burnout soared. Yet, Bits remained utterly oblivious, satisfied only by his complete and total control. I remember feeling a strange, uncomfortable shame when I learned he was from the same area as me, even attended the same high school, though years before my time. The plot thickened in 2012 when our company merged with a parent company. Personnel-wise, little changed. But infrastructure-wise, we got a shiny new MS Outlook system with an organizational view. That's when I first saw it, his full name, clear as day, in the company directory. My blood ran cold, then pulsed with a sudden, jarring recognition. His full name, Bitsa. The name was common enough, yes, but at the time, mobile numbers often had area-specific patterns. I already knew the previous owner of my phone number was from my hometown, the same area as Bitsa. Could it be? Could the man who had been the bane of my existence for years be the very same phantom whose debt collectors had plagued me for a decade? I needed to know for sure. I had to dig deeper. I sought out an old mentor, a wise man who lived in my area and had coached countless high school students over the past 2 decades. I won't go into the specifics of our conversation, but through his insights and a few carefully posed questions, my suspicions were confirmed. It was undeniably him. Bitsa, the elusive debtor, and Bits, the tyrannical project manager, were one and the same person. The frustration I'd harbored against this unknown Bitsa for almost a decade, combined with the daily torment inflicted by Bits, coalesced into a single, burning desire for justice. This is where the revenge truly lies, an elegant, multi-layered trap years in the making. First, I went into my phone and unblocked every single number. All 150 plus of them. Prior to this, I averaged 5 to 6 calls a day. After unblocking, the floodgates opened. I started receiving 15 to 18 calls daily, a symphony of forgotten debts and desperate pleas. My answering strategy changed drastically. Instead of a curt wrong number, I adopted a tone of polite helpfulness. Oh, the previous owner of this number, Bitsa? Yes, he changed his number some time ago. Let me give you his current number so you can update your database. And this, my friends, is where I knew I could be the ultimate **** hole. I didn't just give out his personal number. I also volunteered his manager's number, adding, just in case he tries to pull something again. The fallout was epic. It was a cascade of chaos that began with a trickle and quickly became a torrential downpour. These people, banks, debt collection agencies, credit card companies, had been trying to find him for almost a decade. They had sold his debts to specialized companies that literally harass people for a living. It turned out, this Bitsa had been taking loans in everyone's names, his wife, his parents, his uncles, his aunts. And he had given every single one of them my old phone number. He was evading credit card debt and loans totaling upwards of $200,000, a mind-boggling sum in our country. Apparently, he had almost 20 cases filed against him, but no one could ever find him. He thought he could walk on water, untouchable. There are multiple, delicious versions of what happened at the office when his manager started receiving calls about Bitsa's colossal debts. The details are hazy, but the outcome was crystal clear. The project manager, the tyrant who had made our lives a living hell, the ghost from my past, was let go about 2 months later. He vanished from the office as quickly as his debtors had vanished from my phone. I haven't heard from him since. The sound of his name, once a source of dread and annoyance, is now synonymous with the sweet satisfaction of poetic justice. My phone, once a conduit for his past, is now blissfully silent, save for the calls that are actually meant for me. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about the culmination of years of frustration, a quiet act that finally brought a bully to his knees. It taught me that sometimes, the most powerful justice isn't about grand gestures, but about leveraging overlooked details and a bit of well-placed information. Have you ever had a moment where an old annoyance turned into your greatest weapon? Share your stories in the comments below. If this tale of long-awaited justice resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more incredible real-life revenge stories, and share this video with anyone who believes in the power of karma. Until next time, remember, every old debt, eventually, comes due.